Welcome back to Play with Ray. Almost a year ago, I made a video which was called The Outer Worlds Part 2 Trailer Reaction, What We Know So Far. In that video, I talked about what this sequel might become. I remember saying that it looked bigger, darker, and maybe even funnier than the first one. But I also wondered whether it could keep that handcrafted charm. Well, now that I finally played The Outer Worlds Part 2, we can answer those questions. What's new, what actually works, and did Obsidian deliver on what we all hoped for back then? Let's find out. And finally, if you enjoyed my review, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. Thanks a lot. And back in that first video I made, it looked to me that The Outer Worlds 2 was going for something much larger than Part 1. Bigger planets, dynamic weather, and smoother transitions. But would that scale come at the cost of detail? Now that I've seen the final game, I can say yes and no. Arcadia, the new colony, is definitely larger and more open than Halcyon ever was. You can explore broader zones with fewer loading screens, and it's all built on Unreal Engine 5. So yeah, the lighting and textures look great. But while the environments are beautiful, they sometimes feel a bit emptier once you've cleared them out. So for me, I feel that yeah, we got that scale, but we didn't get the density of life that made the first game so special. And how does that new world feel? In my old video I mentioned that the tone seemed darker but still playful, and that prediction turned out to be spot on. Arcadia is a colony in crisis, with strange space-time rifts tearing reality apart, and 3 new factions fighting over what's left. I can recall playing Part 1, the thing I liked most was the humor, and luckily the humor's still there. But it's toned down a little. The story leans more into moral tension and less into absurdity. And honestly, I'm not quite convinced if I like it one way or another. I have to say it feels more grounded, like Obsidian wanted to see how far they could push the universe without losing that weird soul. So let's talk a bit about the big new features. One of the biggest things I was curious about last year was the combat. I remembered saying, could fights in Part 2 feel like a whole new ballgame? And yes, they kind of do. Combat to me finally feels satisfying. The guns feel heavier, enemies react more properly, and fights move with a lot more energy. And what really helps me to get into that zone is the new third-person camera. I felt that it actually helped during exploration and medic fight. Okay, it's a bit awkward indoors, but overall it's one of those additions that makes you think, yeah, that should have been there from the start, and luckily we have it now. To me, the fighting in Part 1 also felt somewhat repetitive. The thing I hope for from Part 2 is that there would be deeper customization and above all a smarter AI. Well, we kind of got that in this game. The customization and progression are definitely deeper. You level up faster and choices feel more meaningful. But the companion AI is still a bit clueless. One of the big things in The Outer Worlds Part 1 is the skill trees and the perks. For me personally, it feels that Obsidian really delivered on that one. The skill system is cleaner and more focused. And the floor system, a thing I really love about this game, now reacts to how you play. If you keep getting burned, you might develop pyrophobia. If you take too many hits, the game might attack you with a weakness, and you get a unique perk for it. It's a clever balance that makes your character feel more personal and connected to your playstyle. Another thing Obsidian does really well is its storytelling. I was expecting something big and bold, and that we get it in this Part 2? Well, again a mixed bag. The Rift Crisis driving the main plot does sound epic, but for me the story didn't always live up to that setup. It's interesting, it's well written, but it doesn't hit as hard as it could have. Where for me personally The Outer Worlds really shines is in its side quest and faction arcs. Those to me are classic Obsidian, full of wit, sharp writing, and tough choices that stick with you. In my first review for this game, I was telling you guys that the first part had a meticulously designed playground, and I was worried that this sequel might trade that detail for skill. So how did that work out in The Outer Worlds Part 2? When I started playing the game, I felt that the regions on Arcadia felt dense and rewarding. They're full of loot, side stories, and surprises tucked into corners. But once you've cleared an area, it stays that way. There aren't any respawns, there aren't any dynamic events, just silence, nothing happens. It looks beautiful, but it loses some spark over time. As for the companions, I'm glad to report that the humor and heart are still there. Their side quests are often the highlight of the story. It's funny, it's emotional, and usually you get great dialogue. I just wish they would fight as well as they talk. So now a bit about the technical side and the presentation of the game. Well, the game looks and runs noticeably better than the first one. The lighting, the reflections, and the skyboxes on Unreal Engine 5, they are absolutely gorgeous. But you still spot stiff facial animations and the occasional bug. To me, that's not a big issue, but it still reminds me that this isn't a massive budget production. And one of my biggest concerns, which I voiced in the first video, is that shift to realism might erase the series' signature Art Deco charm. Thankfully, it didn't. The sequel does look more modern, but it still has that retro futuristic vibe that, in my opinion, defines The Outer Worlds. So it's time for my verdict. How do I feel about this game? Does it compare to what we expected? And is the stuff that we're getting good enough? Well, we've got the bigger worlds, we got the visual upgrade, and more refined RPG mechanics. The humor survived, just it's a bit toned down. The companions, they are great, even if the AI isn't. The story aimed high, but to me it felt that the side content often outshines it. And having said all that, I feel that the game might not be so revolutionary as some people would have hoped, but to me it feels that it has evolved. In the sense that it fixes most of what needed fixing and adds just enough new ideas to feel fresh. And in all honesty, what really matters is, did I enjoy playing the game? Well, I had a great time with it. So if I were to score this game, I would say it's an 8 out of 10. To me, they delivered a strong and thoughtful sequel that mostly lives up to its promise. And it reminded me why I like this universe in the first place. Okay, that's all from me. I'm really curious to hear, what do you think about this game? Did it meet your expectations, or were you hoping for something more or something else? Please let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out and it keeps me motivated to keep on going. Thank you and catch you in the next one.